behind my development where I live in Overlook. And I'm not an expert, but I just was curious if Governor Christie is aware with all the funding he approved for the new high school to be built, of what's going on in our town. Because it'd be a shame if people weren't bringing their kids in or moving into our town because of this, and therefore the funding that was granted would be like a waste. Thank you.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? State your name.
My name is Margaret Taylor. I live at 1016 Deerhaven Terrace in the Overlook Lopatcong condominium community. I have with me my great-granddaughter, Harper Caroline. Next week, she'll be celebrating her first birthday. Right now, as you look at her, you can see she's a very healthy little girl. My home on Deerhaven Terrace backs up to the cornfield that faces Strikers Road. And from my understanding, the asphalt plant will be built across the street from the cornfield. For the past 9 years, I've been able to sit out on my deck, which faces this cornfield, and enjoy the fresh air, look at the various birds, and watch the deer and wild turkeys that romp through the field. My grandson, Brandon, who is now 10, loved to sit out on the deck with his grandfather, using his binoculars to see close up all the wild animals and wildlife that are in the field. This year, I was looking forward to being able to be out on that same deck with my sweetheart little girl Harper, enjoying the same good times that I did with Brandon and my husband. But if an asphalt plant is built across from that field, I know my deck will not be safe, a safe place for Harper to be. What will be in the air that she will be breathing? Not fresh air, that's for sure. As I stand here before you with Harper right beside me, please look at her for a minute. See how healthy she is now. Then please ask yourselves, how might this asphalt plant affect her health? Remember, this could be your child, your grandchild, or your great-grandchild. Thank you for your time.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. State your name and address, please.
My name is Tony DiBenedetto. I'm at 107 Alden Road in Stewartsville. As you think about why a board like you would step up to approve any initiative, whether it be this or any other, it really boils down to the benefits have to outweigh any downside from that initiative, right? So as you think about this, what are the benefits that this community and surrounding communities might realize from this? And I'd suggest there may be two issues that you think about. One is, what's the potential for jobs? And as I understand it, somewhere between 7 and maybe 12 jobs. I think anyone would argue that's minimal. Secondly, what I would say is obviously look at the tax base. What's the potential tax base? What's that the town would enjoy as a result of this? And I think if you broke that down to the average homeowner, probably be anywhere between $15 and $25 per year. Right? So I think you look at also at home values. Is this going to help or hurt the home values? I think you could argue it's not going to help. Is it going to enhance the community? And you argue that the answer to that is no. Is it going to make this area more desirable? The answer would be no. Is it going to make this community more safe for your residents? And you could argue the answer to that is no. Is it going to alleviate traffic problems? No. Quite honestly, it's probably the opposite. Well, truck traffic is you're going to have. So really what it boils down to is that, probably what you argue is that tax base, right? So for $20 a year, if we were to ask the residents of this community, would you be willing to take $20? Would you be willing to take $20 to deal with the heavy truck traffic that will result from this approval? I'd suggest yes, you're going to get to no.
I'll write my check.
Would you be willing to take $20 for the possibility of reduced home values? I think they can give that $20 right back. Would you be willing to take $20 for the risk of the quality of their drinking water? They can give the $20 right back. And I could go on and on with the risk of carcinogens, the risks of dust and all those other things. Clearly, the benefits do not outweigh the downside of this initiative. The second point I'd like to bring to your attention is, as a board, I think as members, you have a duty and an obligation to avoid any conflict of interest, be it real or perceived. The conflict of interest that exists between this board and the businesses that are involved in this appears to be rampant. I also suggest that if you go ahead and approve this, that the conflict of interest that exists or appears to exist puts this township at risk for lawsuits, and the negative impact would far, far be greater than any minor benefit that this town might realize. It is clear the benefits do not outweigh the downside of this. And my request is that we deny this application. Thank you.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. Marla Enget, 10 Byron Drive, Lopatcong, New Jersey. Just to kind of tag on to what the gentleman was just saying about the $20, and we would gladly give back the $20. We won't need to, because there's no way that our taxes are going to positively go down as a result of this asphalt plant coming in. As a Lopatcong taxpayer, I'm appealing to the board to recognize that if you vote yes on the asphalt plant, there may be an immediate, unintended financial impact to Lopatcong taxpayers. Not only do I believe we will see no reduction in our taxes as a result of inviting this company to build here, but quite the contrary. We actually stand to see our taxes go up as a result. From a purely economic standpoint, this is a very bad deal for taxpayers, and here is why. Who is going to pay to constantly fix, repair, and repave our local roads that will be enduring the daily abuse of up to 300 dump trucks rolling in and out of town on a daily basis? And don't you think that we are running the risk of scaring off more high-tech companies from moving into that area, bringing higher-paying jobs with them? Many companies are not going to be interested in moving next door to an asphalt plant that has 24/7 dump truck traffic, clogging up the roads, and potentially putting their workers and customers in harm's way. Could this not drive down the value of that property? Will we wind up inadvertently pigeonholing ourselves into only being able to attract more of the same types of businesses in the area? And who is going to pay for all of these lawsuits? This thing isn't even approved yet, and we have 3 lawsuits right now. Can you imagine what's going to happen after this thing is put in? You're going to have litigation because we're all going to come out and say you didn't do things properly in conflict of interest. Then you're going to have the 10 years down the road that I got cancer because you put the asphalt plant in. Real or imagined, we live in a litigious society. I don't want my tax dollars going to pay for lawsuit defense from here till eternity. Our school administration, Board of Education, Lopatcong Education Association, and our Lopatcong teachers should be very, very concerned for their health, for the health of their students, and for the future sustainability of their jobs. Why? As I attempted to explain to the planner Thursday night, the state of New Jersey provides state aid to public schools every year based on enrollment numbers. If a parent chooses to remove their child from our school, our numbers go down. This is a very real threat to our enrollment numbers. There are going to be parents who can't take the chance. They may choose to place their kids in local private schools, or a newer option that may become very attractive to Lopatcong parents is the Inter-District School Choice Program. By sign of hands, how many board members are familiar with the Inter-District School Choice Program plan? Okay, I'll tell you all about it. The Inter-District School Choice Program was signed into law by Governor Christie on September 10, 2010. The school choice program allows students to choose to go to our participating school choice public school outside of their district of residence. Schools like Clinton Township, Bloomsbury, Alexandria. Another element to the program is that Lopatcong School District is responsible for footing the transportation costs for that student to the tune of $884 per child if they live within 20 miles of their new school. And when they leave our district, they will take their allotted state aid dollars with them. Less state aid means our school budget, which is already being stretched to the seams, will be further strained. Where do you think school officials will look to recover these lost dollars? I question who besides the asphalt plant owners stand to benefit from this deal. One thing I know for sure, it is not the average Lopatcong taxpayer.
Raise your right hand, son. Do you swear to tell the truth and the whole truth? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Coach Galati. I am 9 years old. I live in Greenwich Township. I am not in great favor of having the asphalt plant near my neighborhood. Following are the reasons. Number 1, this plant leaves harmful gases in the air. If people close by inhale this, it will be harmful for their health in the long run. Number 2, there are schools nearby. Can you imagine hundreds of kids going to schools close to the plant breathing polluted air? Children who have asthma might not be able to play outside. Number 3, this plant will bring so much truck traffic in our area. This will bring more pollution, and the people who go to school or work will have to face a lot of traffic. Number 4, the water will also be polluted by the asphalt plant. The debris and material from the plant can affect and enter our water system. All of these reasons and more explain why we should not have an asphalt plant in our community. I love my town. Please don't pollute it by bringing the asphalt plant. By Coach Galati.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? State your name and address, please.
Bob Capetta, C-A-P-P-E-T-T-A, 1116 Monroe Drive, Stewartsville, New Jersey. How long is state of the art? Is it 5 years? 3 years? When Cush is able to drive? When my grandchildren are growing up? How long is state of the art? The decision we make today is only going to be state of the art for a small period of time. The other night, you had the applicant make changes to the plan, like 8-inch curves, and have them go all the way around. Was that out of concern for the water that was there? If it was out of concern, and you have doubt in your mind. If one of our board members has doubt in their mind, then we all should have doubt. Thank you.
Raise your hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir, I do.
State your name and address.
Mary Green, 513 Madison Drive, Greenwich, Stewartsville. I was here the other night, gave me a chance to speak. A lot of people have raised a lot of the points that I would have raised anyhow, and they've done it very well, but not being an expert on air quality or chemicals or what have you, or if 6 inches is appropriate or 8 inches is appropriate, I don't know. But I am unfortunately an expert on PCD. And I'm pretty sure I'm probably the only PCD expert in this room. My son has PCD. He's 10 years old. His name is Sean. He's going to be riding his bike about half a mile away from this plant. PCD stands for primary ciliary dyskinesia. And I'll spell it for you if you need me to. He basically cannot clear mucus from his lungs or any of his other areas. Sean, aside from going to school and wrestling and playing sports, he spends about 3 to 4 hours a day plugged into the wall on a percussion vest, inhaling steroids, inhaling antibiotics, and other things. He spends a considerable amount of time in Philadelphia in the hospital, and you would never know it to look at him because lung disease is invisible. Also invisible will be a lot of the chemicals that this plant is going to put in the air. It completely unnerves me that you can make a decision like this that can ultimately impact my son's life. He will need a transplant before the age of 25, and God willing, there will be a pair of lungs for him when he needs them. And I have no doubt that your decision is going to speed that process up. I just want to say there's no legal limit to good things, is there? The DEP doesn't say how much you should love your child or how much good nutrition they should receive. There's no limit on things that are good. Limits are there so that bad things don't happen. And I mean no respect to the woman who came up and suggested that the funds be there to beautify Lopatcong parks and things like that. That's a very nice idea. But literally, my husband and I have gone broke trying to care for our son as best we can. We've gone as far as North Carolina to get the best doctors. This is a very rare disease. And if Inter-County makes a fund for anything, I suggest it be to help me pay my medical bills. How much is okay? How much is safe? I don't know, and I'm challenged that none of you do either. You know, I'm from Tom's River, where in the 70s a little plant known as Ciba geigy was there. And they were doing everything right too until a cancer cluster came. That's why I'm here. Listen, you know, my grandmother died this year, and what she always told me was that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And you know what? My parents also grew up in Brooklyn, and they always told me if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do, sir.
State your name and address, please.
My name is Michelle Massaro, and I live 304 Hamilton Drive in Stuart. Vassallol.
Where do you live then?
I live on 304 Hamilton Drive
In
in Stewartsville,
Stewartsville.
Greenwood
Okay.
Estates community.
I'm here because my daughter's bedroom would be right behind Stryker's room. I lived my whole entire life in New York City, where the pollution and the noise would put me to sleep at night. I've been here over 12 years, and I'm not used to that anymore, and you're going to bring it to my backyard. And that's sad that I'm going to have to move. And I have never said this to anyone. I hope you vote no, but you have my life in your hands.
Mark Burrell, 37 Meadowview Drive, Lopatcong.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
After starting my engineering career, I spent 24 years working in industrial plants. 5 of those years, I was specifically working for companies that made emissions monitoring, pollution monitoring equipment. Over the last 16 years, I've been running my own business, providing measurement solutions to industrial facilities and providing calibration services. Being an engineer, I wanted to put some numbers on the pollution. The stack testing will be done every 5 years for a facility like this. None of the experts ever talked about the element of time on the results. Over 5 years, CO, 74 tons, NOx, 53.9 tons, sulfur dioxide, 28 tons, particulate matter, PM10, 55 tons, suspended particles, the stuff that goes right through the baghouse, 37.95 tons, volatile organics, 26.2 tons, again, volatile. So over a 5-year period, this facility will drop 275 tons of pollution over our area. These gases are lighter than air and they'll be floating around everywhere. The CO will be ingested and the SO2 will change the chemistry of our water. The VOCs will be ingested and taken in through the skin. The PM10 and TSP, or the fine dust, will be ingested into the lungs. I already have 2 children with asthma. I don't need 2 more. The applicant did not submit a material safety data sheet for review of the asphalt cement. I believe this was irresponsible. Asphalt cement is a direct byproduct of the distillation of crude oil to gasoline. Gasoline and asphalt cement will share the same tank in a refinery. Gasoline is refined off the top of the tank. Asphalt cement is vacuumed out of the bottom, and it's usually called slag or mud. Mr. Mitzak stated twice that benzene was only found in gasoline. Well, Mr. Mitzak, asphalt cement and gasoline share the same tank in a refinery. In my personal opinion, the MSDES was not submitted for 2 reasons. When AC cement is heated, it generates hydrogen sulfide gas, which is deadly. So all the tanks and pipes in this facility will contain this gas. If you don't believe me, I have an article here from Hydrocarbon Processing Magazine which verifies this fact. If the AC cement was ever ignited while it was stored in the 70,000 gallons as proposed on this site, it'll generate deadly amounts of this hydrogen sulfide gas into the local atmosphere. New Jersey Right to Know Act states that 100 parts per million is deadly. It biochemically chokes you to death when it enters the body through the lungs or skin. Hydrogen sulfide gas has a rotten egg smell at 1 part per million. At 20 parts per million, it'll shut down your sense of smell. If you reviewed a material safety data sheet on this cement, you would learn that during a fire, the recommended evacuation radius is a half a mile because of this gas. So our elementary school and 3 daycare facilities are within the evacuation radius. Our school system has no bus system. How are we going to get these kids out of this facility? Are we going to have children running across cornfields to the golf course to get away from this facility if it catches on fire? As a parent with 2 kids in this school system, I feel that this is not acceptable or responsible. We're looking at an applicant, we need to look at 2 things, responsibility and integrity. This applicant is irresponsible. They did not submit an EIS or environmental impact study. They did not submit any material safety data sheets to the community for hazmat notification, which I don't even think follows New Jersey Right to Know laws. This plant will have a major environmental impact. They know it, we know it. I hope the board knows it. Yet, no environmental impact statement. The plant manager has never ran an industrial facility. Again, irresponsible. He stated he paved roads. Well, a local pharmacy sells drugs. Are they capable or knowledgeable enough to manufacture drugs? No. The chosen design engineering firm has never designed a facility like this. I believe that is also irresponsible. There's no regard to the community safety or providing fire or emergency training and equipment to protect our community. Again, irresponsible. Lopat is not a playground for these plant operators and designers to experiment in the operation and design of a facility, allowing them to do on-the-job training within 1,600 feet of our school. Again, irresponsible. Let's move on to integrity. The applicant states emphatically that they will follow DEP state and local requirements. They did not answer the board's questions honestly during their first approval. Yet we find out that they have a terrible track record during the second approval process in Islip and Hauppauge, New York. They've been cited, fined, and were brash enough to continue operating while they were in violation. Mr. Mitzak seems convinced that this plant will magically destroy all noise, odors, and dust. You mean to tell me 4 to 6 25-foot towers of crushed stone will have no dust? Come on. I remind Mr. Mitzak that this plant has dust on its air permit. So yes, there will be dust, big and small. We've already had one resident lose their right to enjoy life in Lopatcong when the thugs from this corporation decided to follow her to work one day. This alone should yield a unanimous no vote. This is totally unacceptable behavior, no matter what excuse Mr. Manning comes up with to justify it. What will the applicant do when we make noise, dust, odor, and pollution complaints? Will our children be harassed as they walk home from school? More moms followed around town? This is not the kind of business operator we need in our community. How are we even discussing it at this point? It's appalling. I ask you to please vote no. I have seen and been in hundreds of industrial facilities, and this operation scares me. Do you want your family members followed around town? Vote no, and all these lawsuits go away, and we'll have one lawsuit we'll fight together against them. As board members, you've all worked hard on this board for many years. Do not let this plant and its blight on our precious town be your legacy. Vote no. Alpha said no. Millville said no. Please, you must say no. Thank you very much.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. My name is Paul Harney. I reside at 1204 Fairview Circle at overlooking the Pack Line. I'll try to be brief. Thank you very much for allowing us to address you tonight. To reiterate points made earlier, okay, 300 trucks every day, back and forth, on our roads, the damage done, the amount of money it will cost to keep those roads in good repair, right? Not mentioning the trucks that will bring in aggregate asphalt for reclaiming, not mentioning the asbestos from brake pads, the PCBs deposited from car emissions, the asbestos from cement underneath the asphalt that is brought up from roads made before 1975 that support the cement that supports the asphalt laid upon it. Right? The other issues, the amount of money that would be saved, the aggregate, the ratables for the average property tax payer in Lopatcong, under $40 a year. Is it worth taking a risk on the type of pollution that we're talking about, on the type of damage to our local roads we're talking about, for the lawsuit costs that will be involved, for the potential loss of health and the good and welfare of our local citizens for $40 or less an average taxpayer in this community? I wouldn't think so. As to the perception issue of the board, okay? As a police officer, detective, 25 years of service, I know a little something about the issues of perception of impropriety. It can be a very damaging thing. I mean no disrespect to this board, I'm sure you're all good people. But the perception that can be taken from the connections that this board and the mayor of this community have to this project. Anybody of any reason is going to have doubts and is going to cause them to be minorly suspicious of the goodwill of this board, particularly since it serves at the will of the mayor, who needed to recuse himself from these proceedings. Okay? I wish you to think about these topics. I wish you to think about them well. All right? That's all we can ask of you. You are charged with the goodwill and the welfare of this community. Please take that charge seriously and vote your conscience.
More of public comment.
Sure. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Just state your name and address.
Donna Schneider, SCHNEIDER, 26 Meadowview Drive, Lopatcong. I moved here from Union County. I grew up in Union County. I was there my whole life. I was in the midst of General Motors, Exxon, Bayway, the New Jersey Turnpike, the refineries, anything you can imagine that caused so much pollution. I would wake up and find a kaleidoscope of colors on my windshields, on my windowsills, and I hated it. I moved out here with my family. As much as I'm angry about this asphalt plant and the proposed items, my fellow community members did a great job expressing almost every one of my concerns, except for one. I'm wondering why 189 strikers did not have any doctors as their expert witnesses. I don't know why that would be if they had nothing to hide or if that would cause no concerns. As with my anger, it was overshadowed by my sadness. As I mentioned during the hearings, my 10-year-old son, Ian, has Duchenne muscular dystrophy. A short diagnosis. Muscular dystrophy is a muscle wasting disease. The lifespan is late teens to early 20s. It takes away his legs. By the age of 10, he will be in a wheelchair permanently. It works up to every muscle group in the body. It goes to the arms after the legs and continues to the lungs and the heart. The heart is the last thing that this disease takes. There is no cure. There is no treatment. There will be no cure in this lifetime, in his lifetime. Death is certain. I will bury my son before his life should have ended. My body gave this disease to my son, unintended, I know, but I live with that guilt every day, and it's overwhelming and sometimes debilitating. I love our home, and we don't want to move. Please don't increase my guilt by approving this plant and decreasing my son's chance for a longer life. We are responsible for all of our own mistakes. You can right a wrong.
You have a fiduciary responsibility to what is right for our community. Shame on us for entrusting you with the task of protecting our welfare. But you know what? We all learn from our mistakes, and we're learning now. This community is forever changed. You stirred something up in us. You poked the bear. And we will never entrust our well-being to any board in Lopat. I was halted in my tracks when I took this out of my children's backpacks. This is a collection called Pennies for Patients. It's for leukemia and lymphoma diseases and cancers. It says pennies for patients. I can guarantee you that they're going to need more than pennies if you pass this asphalt plant. Thank you.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. State your name.
Tom Moscalzo, 220 Bald Eagle Drive in the Overlook Development. Loscalzo. First, I want to say that I don't envy any of you. You're in a very difficult position. I served as the treasurer of my church for a few years, which really is nothing compared to your position, and it was very difficult. So I sympathize with the position that you're in. I also have some good news for you. This is not my whole speech. I have a bunch of supporting documentation. My speech is just a page or two. So I'll try to make this quick. I would also request that you give the two gentlemen behind me a chance to speak. They've been waiting all night and people keep cutting in front of them. Having said that, I want to tell you a little bit about my qualifications. I have degrees in engineering and business from Rutgers. I got a 3.6 in both majors. I did pretty well. I'm also a resident of Overlook, which qualifies me as at least somewhat of an expert on the way the wind blows in our township, and also what happens when a frivolous environmental lawsuit comes on a community. As you're probably all aware, we haven't been able to sell our houses very well because of a radon lawsuit that has almost no merit, but yet was awarded class action status by the Warren County Supreme Court. I would anticipate something like that in our town if this went forward. And again, none of us, in fact, there's only one person in the whole development that wanted the class action lawsuit. Everyone else is against it, and it was still awarded class action status. So that's something to consider from your perspective. Now, I've done a careful review of all the information I could get my hands on in the last few days. Of course, information is kind of scarce and it's short notice. There are 5 or 6 issues that really concern me about this that I'd like you to consider. The first is the issue of what's called an exhaust plume. Is anybody familiar with that term? My understanding is that the EPA regulates the global level of emissions. And what that means is statewide, there's a certain amount of every type of pollutant that they'll allow to be released into the atmosphere. And so that on an aggregate basis, they control the overall quality of our air. Now, what I'm not sure if they regulate, and we need an expert to testify on this, is how the plume from a specific source is monitored and planned for. And what the plume is, when you have a point source emitting something, it sort of rises into the atmosphere and the wind blows it in a certain direction, depending on the temperature, the density of the gases, the size and density of particulates, relative humidity, all those types of things. But I do know that the location on Strikers Road is between 30 to 70 feet lower than the surrounding houses in Overlook and all those houses in Greenwich Township by the Home Depot. I also know that the wind mostly blows west to east. It blows from the west. And I also know, based on an EPA report, which I read hastily this afternoon, there's a lot of bad stuff that comes out of these plants. Some of it is particulate. The thing that caught my attention was arsenic. What particulate means, which you're probably aware of, tiny, tiny little particles, almost like dust. But what happens is, as the plume goes up,
The plume is very hot because this is a hot mix plant. As it goes into the atmosphere, it starts to cool off, its rate of ascent slows. At some point, those tiny little particles fall to the ground. If it's raining, they could fall anywhere from a few hundred feet from the plant out to maybe the cornfields in Greenwich or the houses of our residents. Over time, I would not be surprised if levels of arsenic started to build up in some of the cornfields in our community or in neighboring communities. Again, I can't testify as an expert witness because I'm not in this specific field of engineering, but I think that it would be a good idea to get somebody who is to take a look at this. So that is my first concern. Now, of course, there are many other types of pollutants other than arsenic that are going to be in the plume. Again, I would strongly recommend that the board finds an expert, that the board maintains control of the money used to pay the expert, that the board selects the expert. It's not an expert selected by the construction firm. I can testify under oath that I just had 2 appraisals of my condominium for 2 separate real estate transactions. In one of those transactions, the bank was motivated to get a low appraisal, and the appraisal was magically $140,000. In the second appraisal, less than a month later, it was a commercial bank on a different kind of transaction. They were motivated to get a high appraisal, and their appraisal came in at $230,000, almost 100% greater than the other appraisal. So, and I also, forgive me, fellow citizens, I do work on Wall Street, but I am not Wall Street, I just work there. There is a lot of corruption in the world today. It is everywhere. The people in power are extremely corrupt. It's difficult for good people to maintain their positions of authority without acquiescing or looking the other way. And again, this is another reason that I don't envy you. I don't know the pressure that you're under. I've never had a problem with you, and I think you're wonderful people. But I can tell you that if you're going to get engineering reports, please make sure that it's from a source that you directly control. Okay, the next point I have, and I'll try to speed this up. Highest and best use. In my opinion, I don't think an asphalt plant is the highest and best use. I've been writing software for 15 years. I moved out here 7 years ago. I work in Princeton, New Jersey. Some days I stay over, some days I drive. All my coworkers say, "Where's Lopatcong and why do you live there?" And I keep telling them, "You don't understand. It's beautiful. I love it there. There's cornfields, there's cows, the air is clean, we have beautiful, beautiful sunrises and sunsets. It's like nothing you've ever seen before." And they all think that I'm crazy, but I know that I'm not. It would be so easy to attract just a software company out here. Speaking as somebody who is in that field, there's tons of people with a lot of experience who are laid off or who hate their jobs in Somerset and Hunterdon County. They would have to reverse commute, they might move out here, they'd have low taxes, and the multiplier effect of having office-type workers in this community would be tremendous, because they would go out and have lunch, they would shop at the ShopRite, they would go to the mall. We would have no pollution. If they brought in 200 workers, that's probably 100 to 150 lunches each day that get served. We'd have the same number of vehicles, but it would be light passenger traffic instead of heavy truck traffic. And that's just one idea based on one person's experience. So I think that if we're creative, we can really find a great way to build up our town and attract lots of business and make it into the type of town that we all really want. And on that note, I want to say that it's unfortunate that we're all sitting here and you're sitting there, because we're really on the same team. I don't get this whole adversarial thing. I don't believe in it. Okay. The third point is, now you can't address this point, but it really doesn't make sense for the plant operator. They're going to be facing lawsuits and the opposition of their community, and the emergency responders that are going to come when a plant explodes or when a worker's in trouble are going to be the residents that they've aggravated. And I think that, one environmental lawsuit or one class action lawsuit will completely eclipse any economic benefit they thought they were going to derive from this plan. Overlook is the subject of a $4 million lawsuit for 1 or 2 radon readings being high in one unit. If you get people with accusations of cancer or any other types of health issues, it could easily be a $100 million or more class action lawsuit against this operator. I don't know why they want to come here. There are plenty of wonderful sites a few miles north of us, a few miles south of us, a few miles west of us, and a few miles east of us. So again, I'm not sure why they've chosen Lopatcong to build this plant. Now the fourth point, which I think really is of great concern to you as the board, is that this plan will have a very detrimental effect on property values. And I'm going to cite a study by the Blue Ridge Environmental Defense League. Again, I can't testify to this as an expert, but I think that it's worth investigation by the board. In their study, they said that within 2 years of the construction of a new asphalt plant, property values fell over 50%. Now, let's look at Lopatcong. I don't know exactly how many households we have. I assume it's about 2,000. And the average home price from Zillow is $200,000. So if 2,000 people lose $100,000 of property value, that's an aggregate loss of $200 million. And I guarantee you, if that happens, you will all be the subject of a class action lawsuit. Now please don't talk, because it's not us against the board. I'm out of here, okay? I love it here, but for family reasons, I probably have to leave the area anyway. What I'm telling you as individuals, in your own self-interest, think about this. You've been put on notice. I will give you the information of this study. Look at it carefully, because for a tiddly $75,000 a year in tax revenues, you're opening yourselves up to this type of liability. And for me, it would be financial suicide. I would never do it. I don't care how much they bribed me if they did. I don't care. Do you know what I'm saying, right? This is a very serious issue. I don't take bribes, by the way. I'm just... Okay, shut up, Tom. All right, the fifth point, again, I think as members of the board, you have to look at this very carefully. Please follow my logic. Audience, please don't clap. This is not meant to be inflammatory. But I believe that approving this plan essentially is a government order to poison children. And the reason is, again, quoting the Blue Ridge Environmental Defense League's research, 45% of residents living within 1/2 mile of new asphalt plants develop health problems within 2 years. Now, the elementary school is less than 1/2 mile from the plant. And as I understand it, it's illegal for children not to attend elementary school without a suitable alternative. Is that correct? Now, what this means is that township residents who are too poor to afford private school or to leave the town have no legal alternative but to send their children to this school. And that's very serious. Now, we've all been hit by the housing market. Some people are underwater. If this plant is built and the research is right, we'll be even further underwater. So your citizens are basically captives that are legally forced to send their children to a place that may contain cancer-causing and other types of pollution. So I'd like you to consider this carefully as our board. Now, the last point I have is that the benefits just don't justify the costs. And some other people have touched on that. I think it sort of sums up what I've had to say. Now, I've also been in business. I've ran a business. I studied business. I work in the investment field. I'm sure that this firm has invested a lot of money and a lot of time in this field. I have no problem paying an extra $100 of taxes to reimburse them for everything that they've paid. We give them a little nest egg, a little starter fund that they can take and move this project to another town Not that we're pushing it off on another town, but there's just other places in the state that are so much more suitable for this type of facility. So in closing, I want to tell you that we are all counting on you to do the right thing. Fire belongs in the fireplace, not in the living room. Thank you.
This will be the last witness, it's past 8:30 already. This is the last public comment.
Good evening. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. My name is Robert Larson of the 26th Ground Court. I've lived in Lopatcong for the past 10 years. I have 2 children that attend Lopatcong Elementary and a wife that teaches there. So make no mistake, I have a vested interest in what happens here this evening. Just like you, I too am here for the facts. Members of this community have turned this application into a witch hunt. They have branded Intercounty Paving guilty until proven innocent. That's not America or New Jersey. A minority has attacked specific individuals and spread misinformation about the application. Many of the residents of Lopat have confidence in their elected officials and boards that they have the ability to separate fact from opinion. I am one of those people. Intercounty Paving has submitted an application for a permitted use. Fact. Greenwich Township has had a similar facility operating for decades without incident to environment or personal harm. Fact. The board has to look at the facts, and when they do, this facility will be approved. It is your duty this evening to weigh the facts that have been presented before you, not the opinion and not any of the other minutiae. You gentlemen are faced with a difficult decision. You have to grant this applicant their permission to come to town. Now, with that said, I personally would like to see a stipulation in place where this facility could be accommodated, as well as some stipulations put in place, such as a citizens advisory board or some other way that they can work hand in hand with our community. There's a way to do business, but this isn't the way to do it. We need to be business-minded and open to businesses wanting to come to New Jersey and to our town. Not like all the other ones that are being closed-minded and send everyone to Pennsylvania. Thank you very much.
We'll move on.
He's had his time after 8:30, can I have mine?
So this is it. You have an objection?
I would request on behalf of the applicant to show line, you have to complete it. I know the board's been patient. That's a request.
You can't allow someone to start after 8:30. You said 8:30 we were stopping, and you allow him to start after 8:30.
The chairman has the right to conduct
Oh, you
meetings.
change the rules as it goes along. I get it.
It was announced at the beginning of the meeting that we had public comment till 8:30. What time is it?
Can you explain the reasoning? That's all, I'd like an explanation. We were told that we would all have time, but it's my time too. It's your time and it's my time, and I took off early from work to be here. So we've all got
No,
time issues.
we've gone to 8:30. That was the rules we set when we stopped here. Public comment has been concluded.
Full comment after 8:30. Full comment after 8:30. That's your last comment.
Sir, I don't know who's pro, who's con when they come and approach the podium. That's the end of the public comment.
Okay, Paul Garabo, 2 Coblewood Court, Lopatcong.
You're out of order.
Just for the record, I just want
You're out of order. I'll have you removed if you don't step down.
Ingara, 2 Coblewood Court, Lopatcong, New Jersey. I have one quick comment. I would just like
You are out of order, ma'am.
Okay,
Please
my
sit
mom
down.
grew up 1 mile from Intercounty Paving's New York plant.
I, along with my siblings, spent much time
Madam, you
at
are
my
out of
grandparents'
order.
home.
You will not be ended on the record. Everyone is ready to move this motion.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. Somebody get this on video. Get it on video. Get it on video. Get it on video.
Both my mom and my younger brother are fighting.
Get it on video. You gotta be kidding me.
The chairman controls the meeting.
He said 10 o'clock.
Why didn't you read back what he said at the end of last meeting?
You said 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
We'll take a 5-minute break to the court reporter,
Because they gotta call in there. They gotta call in there.
and the meeting will continue.